Whether you read the Bible or you read other texts or you don't believe anything, I think we can all agree that the mass production and all of the bad things that go into pet food is barbaric. The multi-billion-dollar pet food industry is essentially a garbage can and recycling bin for the human waste industry. But I'm not here to scare you. I have a solution that's ethical, sustainable, and what's best for your cat, and it follows scripture. Hey friends, it's Jess and Jericho, and this video is in response to a comment from Christine. She says, I wish my cats could be vegan like our Father intended for all creation. So since they have evolved to be carnivores, I want to make sure it's humanely and ethically sourced. I understand where you're coming from. I'm not a Bible expert. I do read scripture every day, and I agree that our cats' food should be humanely and ethically sourced and made. I'm glad that you mentioned that cats are carnivores. But for anyone else watching that's curious about feeding a vegan diet to their cat, let's talk about that first. So the first reason that cats can't be vegan is that they use protein, amino acids, and animal fat as a source of energy. They can't utilize carbohydrates. Animal-based protein delivers a full, complete protein profile, whereas plants do not. Feline Nutrition Foundation states a shortage of taurine induces cardiomyopathy, a serious form of heart disease, central retinal degeneration, and blindness. Cats can't synthesize taurine on their own. It must be provided in their diet. And meat is the only thing that provides taurine naturally. Even eggs don't provide taurine. Plants don't provide taurine. Taurine is found in hard-working muscle meats like the thigh, the heart, and the secreting organ liver is also a good source of taurine. Back in the 80s, there were tens of thousands of cats that were dying, and it was all linked to dry pet food. The two most popular veterinary recommended brands did not add enough taurine to the product. And since it's dry food, it's cooked and pressurized multiple times. Taurine is water soluble, so the more you keep cooking the ingredients, the less taurine there's going to be in the finished product. Additionally, dry food is extremely high in carbohydrates, which brings me to my next point of why cats can't be vegan, is that carbohydrates are bad for cats. It's detrimental to their health. Carbohydrates fuel hunger and obesity alone puts your cat at much higher risk for very serious health issues, including heart issues, arthritis, because there's a lot of weight on the joints and it's hard for them to walk around. It's painful for them to walk around. This can also lead to grooming issues because it's difficult for them to groom in certain places when they're very large. This can also lead to diabetes. When you have carbs breaking down into sugar, this wreaks havoc on the pancreas and it negatively affects insulin production. That's why a lot of overweight and obese cats typically develop diabetes. In fact, there's a veterinarian, Dr. Elizabeth Hodgkins, where she tested it with her own cats, and in her practice, all of the cats that had diabetes, they were eating a dry food diet. She transitioned them over to a high protein, high moisture, low carbohydrate diet. And in many cases, the diabetes completely disappeared. They stopped relying on insulin completely. And in two different cases, when the cats returned to a dry food diet, aka low moisture, low meat-based protein, and high carbohydrate diet, diabetes returned. So she had to transition them back to the high moisture, high meat, low carb diet, and then remission happened again. Another reason that cats can't be vegan is that their teeth aren't designed to grind down plant materials and dry food in general. All of their teeth are sharp and serrated, and their jaws also only move up and down. They don't grind side to side like ours do and herbivore teeth do. So their teeth are designed to chop up and down and basically scissor through raw meaty bones and flesh and skin and feathers and all of these things that are in their whole prey. So they chop it up into smaller pieces, swallow those pieces whole, and then their acidic stomach takes care of the rest. Now, some of you might think, well, what if my vegan pet food just adds taurine? What if they add the synthetic supplements that meat would provide and just supplement the diet that way? Well, synthetic nutrients are very different than natural nutrients. Like I mentioned before, animal-based protein provides a complete protein profile, and they all work very, very well together. And you get all the benefits other than just the nutrients. And there was a study with cats, specifically with phosphorus, and they wanted to see if the synthetic version in excess caused problems versus the natural form of phosphorus, which comes from meat. And they found that the synthetic version of phosphorus, when given in excess over long periods of time, did cause problems, which is important considering that a lot of cats today have kidney disease. A lot of us say that the enemy is phosphorus, but I would say that the enemy is a low moisture diet because the kidneys need moisture to flow through urine. And another issue is the synthetic version of phosphorus that's being added instead of relying on the cat's natural source of phosphorus, which is meat. So now let's take a look at an example of a vegan cat food. I think this is one of the first brands that came about, and it's called Benevo. So first of all, right off the bat, this cat food is dry. So right there, it's inappropriate regardless of the ingredients. Dry food is way too low in moisture for cats. Whole prey, aka their natural food, is about 70% moisture, whereas dry food is only 10% moisture. That's a very, very significant decrease, especially considering that the cats evolved from desert cats. So it's not like they had cat water fountains and like large lakes to drink from. They relied solely on their prey for their moisture content. And again, that high moisture is essential because water is essential for life, but it's also essential for proper body functions, including digestion and urination. Again, that's why a lot of cats that eat dry food only typically develop some form of kidney disease because their kidneys are they're so weak and starving for moisture, it's difficult for them to process everything. So let's take a look at the ingredients. We have soy, wheat, corn, which is maize gluten meal, maize, rice, sunflower oil, beet pulp, and then vitamins and minerals, brewer's yeast, yeast-based palatin, linseed, seaweed, and then we have some probiotics, spirulina, yucca extract. So basically, obviously this is a vegan food, so all of these are plant-based ingredients. But soy is not natural. More than 90% of the soy in the US is genetically modified. Same with corn. Even the cat's prey wouldn't eat soy in the wild. Typically grasses and herbs and veggies. So some of you might say, well, the cat eats the whole animal and they eat herbivores. Yes, they do eat the stomach contents, so they get a tiny bit of veggie material, but it's pre-digested veggie material, and the stomach itself is probably like 2% of the entire animal. So 2%, and it's already pre-digested for the cat, isn't enough of a valid excuse to say that cats are omnivores or vegetarian, etc. Then we have wheat and corn and all of these other ingredients. Really the only the closest appropriate ingredient for cats would probably be spirulina or seaweed, because maybe when they're in the wild drinking from a lake, they might get some algae in their diet, but again, this is a very, very small percent of the diet. Additionally, when we use the guaranteed analysis to come up with an approximate carb amount, we get 47% carbs on a dry matter basis. Now, going back to whole prey, it's typically less than 10% carbs. So 47% is a very, very significant increase. I mean, that's half the diet right there is carbohydrates. Benevo also has a wet food vegan cat food. So let's take a look at those ingredients. We have water sufficient for processing, potatoes, carrots, oat groats, vegetable oil, peas, brown rice, tomato, blueberries, cranberries, dried brewer's yeast. Now, this one does have high moisture, but again, potatoes, peas, carrots, these are not things that the cat would eat, nor things that the cat's natural prey would eat. And even though this is wet food, the approximate carbohydrate amount is still 29%, which is a little bit more than double, almost triple what the cat would eat in his natural habitat. And I'd also like to mention that neither of these foods list taurine on the label. They don't add back any of these amino acids. They say vitamins and minerals, but amino acids are different. There's no taurine, carnitine, methionine, they don't add these things back. And again, both of these products are cooked, pressurized, so you have to wonder and worry about these water-soluble nutrients. where is it coming from if plants don't produce taurine? So please comment below. Cats are not vegans. That way more people that are curious about this topic can find this video and learn the truth. Now, Christine mentions a brand called Castor and Pollux, and I wanted to review this food because you mentioned you want it to be humane, ethical, and it has the USDA organic seal on the label. Now, you also mentioned that this company got bought out by another company. That's always something that you want to be mindful of because this happens all the time. So Castor and Pollux is owned by Merrick, and Merrick is owned by Nestle Purina. And as you probably know, Nestle Purina produces multiple different cat food brands and multiple different human food brands. And if you take a look at these brands, they're not the best quality and they're not very healthy for us. So if they don't produce healthy human food, how can we trust that they are going to produce healthy cat food? But let's take a look at the label and we'll review what it means. So it says USDA organic. AFCO doesn't really have regulation for this. They rely on the USDA. That's why there's the USDA organic seal. So they rely on the human food regulation service instead of regulating it themselves. So that USDA organic seal means that at least 95% of the ingredients are certified USDA organic. I looked at Castor and Pollux website and I could only find a dry food product that had the product name chicken and brown rice. So I just have to assume that you're feeding this one, and we'll take a look at that one. If you are feeding the wet food version, let me know and I can let you know in the comments, what I think about the food. So since recipe is in this product name, we have between 25 and 94.9% chicken and brown rice combined. So right there, it's kind of a pro because you have the most amount of those named ingredients. Whereas if it said with chicken and brown rice or chicken and brown rice flavor, you would have fewer. It would be less than 25% of those named ingredients. But the issue here is that there's a combination of ingredients. Instead of saying chicken recipe, which that composition would be all chicken, it says chicken and brown rice. So chicken is listed first. That means there's more than brown rice, but we don't know how much more. It could be split, 51% of that composition could be chicken, the rest could be brown rice. We really don't know. I already talked about how dry food is inappropriate for cats, so I won't go over that again. But the approximate carb amount of this product is about 41%, so that's really not good for cats. And we'll take a look at the ingredients next. A lot of these ingredients are organic. I'm not going to say it because that would be redundant. So we have chicken meal. Now, that word meal means that it is a rendered product, which means that it's high heat and high pressure multiple times. And sometimes these rendered ingredients can include 4D meats, which is dead, diseased, dying, and disabled. Now, if it says organic, it might not be that, but that's just something to be mindful of when you're reading labels, like what these terms actually mean. It would be better if it said, chicken necks, chicken backs, rather than just chicken meal, because that word meal is like an umbrella term. It could mean meat and bone. So you kind of have to question, well, if they didn't really know the specific parts of the chicken that were used to say these are the parts that we're using, they just say chicken meal. So let's just use the umbrella term because we don't really know the fine details of the ingredients. That's very troubling to me. Next, we have pea protein, oatmeal, peas, brown rice, barley, sunflower seed meal, coconut oil, chicken fat, natural flavor, flaxseed chicken liver, dried alfalfa meal, salt. And then it looks like after salt, it's mostly supplements, some synthetic supplements, rosemary extract they typically use as a preservative, and then the last is a probiotic. And so this is basically already a vegan food with a little bit of chicken. A lot of dry foods are basically meat flavored granola. That's the easiest way to explain it. But so I would say that this isn't even that great for your cat. You can definitely do better. Give me a polydactyl thumbs up if this is helpful so far, so more cat parents that want to feed their cat properly can find this video. Thanks so much. So now, since you mentioned our Father in creation, I want to say, what does Scripture say about what we should and shouldn't eat? And there are some verses where he talks about what is clean, aka what we can eat, and what is unclean, aka what we cannot eat. Now, this is for us humans, not for cats. But if you want to find a nice compromise, I think this is a really good solution for ethical, sustainable, and what follows scripture and what your cat needs. So in Deuteronomy, most of these verses, you'll find that he declares which beasts are clean. And basically it includes antelope, bison, buffalo, caribou, cattle, which would be beef and veal, deer, which would be venison, elk, gazelle, sheep, which is lamb, and also called mutton. So there are a lot of variety of land animals. They're basically all grass grazing animals. They're all herbivores, strictly herbivores. Then when it comes to birds, he lists out the birds that we should not eat. And a lot of these are basically birds of prey, meaning that they eat everything. They're omnivores. So they could potentially even eat dead carcasses. And of the clean birds that we should eat, it says all clean fowls ye may eat. So that would include chicken, turkey, quail, pheasant, goose, birds like that. And if we go back a few verses, he tells us that hare, as in rabbit, and swine, as in pigs, are unclean, and we shall not eat them or touch their dead carcass. So I would suggest not feeding these to your cat since you don't want to touch them. There's also information about fish, what to eat and what not to eat, what's clean and what's unclean. But technically cats aren't fishermen. They wouldn't really eat fish in the wild. So I personally don't feed any type of fish to Jericho. Additionally, fish causes picky eating because cats form an addiction to that fish flavor. So I would say it's best just to avoid fish for your cat anyway. Additionally, our Father also clarifies that mice and rats are unclean, which is very interesting to me because mice and rats are what cats eat in the wild, and even rabbit, which are also technically unclean. There are resources in the description that go further into these subjects. Again, I'm not an expert on scripture, but these are just the verses that I found the most helpful and I think that are the most helpful to you. And I would love to know your comments. Let me know what else you find with regard to diet and how you eat and what you feed your cat. I would love to know more resources and more compromises and solutions. So the compromise and the solution that I personally do with Jericho, where it's sustainable, it's humane, it's ethical, it follows scripture, it's clean. What I do is I feed Jericho a raw diet, prey model raw and whole prey, which means that he's eating chunks of meat and chunks of bone. I get the whole prey from a pet food company that sources from local farms. Nothing's ever enhanced, nothing's ever GMO, everything that they eat is clean. And that's the only option that I have right now. I can't find a local person that has whole prey that I can buy, so that's my solution for the whole prey. I don't feed mice anymore, and this was actually a sign that our Father gave me through Jericho. So he was eating mice, and then I bumped it up from large to extra large. And I was also thinking, well, it's from a breeding facility that's not it's not natural. They should be living outside. And so Jericho would actually stop eating the second half of the mouse. And if he did eat it, he would vomit. So I was like, all right, this is a sign that I should just stop feeding them because I was thinking that I don't want to feed them anymore anyway. So now the only whole prey that he gets is quail, which is a clean fowl. The rest of his food I get from my local farmer's market, and I buy beef, chicken, and turkey, and I might throw in some lamb in the mix there. And I go to the farmer's market because I'm supporting local businesses. I can talk to them about their practices. Like everything's pasture raised. They eat what's on the land. They eat natural food. There's no sprays, no chemicals, no GMOs. So I know that they care about the animals that they're raising, and I know that the animals have a good life. And I eat the meat too. So I basically cut out a little bit of portion for Jericho, and then the rest is what I eat that week. And you can check out how I portion everything out and feed Jericho in this video right over here. Thank you so much for watching.